When a woman first realizes that you've truly moved on, the immediate sensation is often one of shock. It's not always because she still loves you, or even because she wants you back. The deeper truth is that the human psyche resists finality. We may accept change in theory, but when confronted with undeniable evidence that someone who once belonged to our inner world now exists joyfully in another, it unsettles the very foundation of our self-perception. For her, seeing you with someone else or even simply noticing your newfound peace can feel like a sudden jolt, as though reality has shifted faster than her emotions can keep pace. This shock is rarely just about you. It is about the story she has been telling herself since the separation. Perhaps she imagined you waiting longer. Perhaps she assumed you were still caught in the same memories. Perhaps she believed she had more control over how quickly you could heal. When those assumptions collapse, the truth is laid bare. Life continues with or without her presence in it. That realization forces her to acknowledge something uncomfortable. Her influence over you is no longer what it once was. Psychologically, this moment strikes at the fragile balance between ego and attachment. The ego clings to the idea of being irreplaceable, and when that illusion shatters, a quiet panic emerges beneath the surface. Even if she has no desire to rekindle the relationship, she may feel a sharp sting in realizing she has lost her place in your narrative. In that instant, she becomes aware that your story is moving forward, and she is no longer a central character. What makes this shock profound is its ability to awaken hidden truths. It reveals the unspoken tension between love and possession, between genuine care and the desire to remain significant. She may not admit it aloud, but deep within, there is an awareness that time has forced a separation more permanent than words ever could. And so, the initial shock is not merely about you moving on. It is about her confronting the reality of impermanence. That nothing, not even the deepest bond, is immune to change. The lesson here is sobering but liberating. No one owns the future of another's heart. The powerful question left behind is this: if she can feel so shaken watching you move forward, what does it reveal about the ways we cling to what is already gone? One of the deepest human needs is the need to feel significant. We want to know that we matter, that our presence in someone's life leaves a mark that cannot simply be erased. When a woman sees you've moved on, the quiet wound that opens within her is tied less to love and more to significance. It's not always about missing you. It's about confronting the unsettling thought that she no longer holds a unique place in your story. That sense of irreplaceability she once carried, whether consciously or not, suddenly comes into question. Think about it. Relationships are not just about affection or companionship. They are about identity. When you were with her, part of her identity was tied to being your person. Even if she walked away, there was often an unspoken assumption that her influence lingered, that she remained unforgettable in some way. But when she sees you laughing with someone new, building a fresh chapter, or even just glowing with the peace of having let go, it can feel like a silent erasure of her once sacred role. She begins to wonder, was I truly as meaningful as I believed, or was I simply one chapter, easily replaced by the next? This is not weakness, it is human nature. Significance validates our existence in the lives we touch. And so, when that validation seems to vanish, it triggers a subtle crisis of worth. She may not say it aloud. She may appear indifferent, polished, unbothered, yet beneath that surface calm there is often an echo of discomfort. Not because she wants to return, but because she realizes she no longer defines any part of your happiness. Philosophically, this moment is a reminder of how fragile our sense of importance can be when tied to another person. True significance, after all, is not about being irreplaceable in someone else's story. It is about cultivating value within our own. Yet many only discover this truth in the aftermath of loss, when confronted with the humbling realization that we do not own permanence in another's life. And that is where the power lies. When she feels her significance fading, she is forced to question whether she has built enough within herself to stand apart from the roles she once held. The same question echoes for all of us. Are we defining our worth by the memories we left in others, or by the meaning we create within ourselves? When a woman sees you've moved on, she often finds herself caught in a battle between pride and vulnerability. Pride tells her to stand tall, to remain composed, to project the image that she is untouched by your absence. Vulnerability, on the other hand, whispers the truth of her emotions. An ache, a sting, sometimes even envy, that she would rather hide from the world. This inner conflict is one of the most human experiences, the tension between how we want to appear and how we actually feel. Pride at its core is protective. It shields her from the judgment of others, and sometimes from her own self-judgment. It allows her to say, "I'm fine," even when she isn't. It becomes the mask that keeps her dignity intact. But vulnerability refuses to stay silent. It shows up in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when she wonders why she feels unsettled, when she replays old memories, when she admits to herself that seeing you move on hurt more than she expected. This clash between pride and vulnerability isn't hypocrisy, it's humanity. We all carry dual truths within us. We want to be strong, but strength does not erase the tenderness of the heart. And often, the more she insists that she is unshaken, the more powerful her vulnerability becomes beneath the surface. Psychologically, this struggle reveals how difficult it is for us to integrate opposing emotions. We live in a world that rewards the appearance of strength while quietly punishing the admission of fragility. And so she fights this battle internally, protecting her pride outwardly while wrestling with her vulnerability in private. But the irony is that both pride and vulnerability serve a purpose. Pride keeps her from collapsing into despair, while vulnerability keeps her human, connected, and capable of reflection. Together, they create a tension that, if understood, can actually lead to growth. For in admitting vulnerability, there is a chance to heal, and in holding pride, there is a chance to rebuild. The deeper truth is this: moving on does not only test her, it reveals her. It shows whether she will cling to pride as a disguise or embrace vulnerability as a path to self-discovery. And the same lesson applies to us all. Real strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to live honestly with both. When a woman sees that you've moved on, one of the most instinctive reactions she faces is the comparison game. It isn't something she consciously chooses. It happens almost automatically, driven by the mind's deep-rooted need to measure, evaluate, and define worth. She looks at the woman now in your life, and, whether she admits it or not, begins to ask, is she prettier than me? Is she smarter, more patient, more supportive? What does she offer that I did not? These questions rarely reflect truth, they reflect insecurity. And yet they can be relentless. This comparison is not merely about physical appearance. It extends into character, energy, and even the emotional space you now share with someone else. Because in her mind, it is not just about who you are with, it is about what that choice says about her. If you seem happier, more alive, more fulfilled, she may feel as though your new joy indirectly exposes her shortcomings. It's as though she is reading a verdict on her own worth, written in the language of your new life. The irony, of course, is that comparison is a flawed measure. No two people can truly be compared because no two connections are ever the same. What you share with someone new does not erase or diminish what once was, it is simply different. But in the emotional heat of seeing you move on, logic often loses to ego. And so she measures herself against a standard that is neither fair nor real, creating an internal conflict that eats away at her peace. Philosophically, this reveals something profound about human nature. We are not always troubled by loss itself. We are troubled by what loss seems to say about us. Her comparison is not just about you. It is about her own identity, her need to feel exceptional, her struggle to accept that your love for someone else does not mean she is less. And here lies the lesson for both men and women. Comparison is a prison. It traps us in illusions of inadequacy, blinding us from the truth that each connection has its own unique meaning. So the real challenge is not to ask, am I better or worse than the one who came after me? The real challenge is to ask, am I becoming better than I was yesterday? Because only that question leads to freedom. Even when a woman was certain about the breakup, even when she believed walking away was the best choice, there is something about seeing you move on that can stir the quiet voice of regret. It isn't always regret for losing you specifically, it is often regret for what was lost in potential. She begins to wonder about the paths never taken, the conversations that were left unsaid, the forgiveness that could have been extended but wasn't. Suddenly the what-ifs appear like shadows, asking questions she thought she had already buried. What if I had been more patient? What if I had tried harder? What if I had stayed just a little longer? Would things have been different? This reflection is powerful because it speaks to a universal truth. Endings rarely feel complete. They are not clean breaks. They are threads left hanging. And when she sees you happy in another chapter, those loose threads tug at her memory. It's not so much that she wants to go back. It's that the finality of seeing you thrive without her makes her question her own choices. Philosophically, this is the weight of human freedom. We make decisions with conviction, but once the consequences unfold, we cannot help but look back and wonder if we chose well. Regret becomes the echo of a decision revisited in hindsight, and it can torment even the strongest of individuals. For her, watching you move on becomes less about you and more about her reckoning with her past. It forces her to confront not only what she lost, but who she was in those moments. And yet, regret is not purely destructive. It has a hidden purpose. It serves as a mirror, pushing her toward deeper self-awareness. It asks her to recognize patterns, to see where pride outweighed compassion, where fear silenced honesty, where love was taken for granted. If she allows it, regret can transform into wisdom, reminding her not to repeat the same mistakes in the future. The deeper lesson for all of us is this: regret is inevitable, but whether it chains us to the past or sharpens us for the future depends on how we use it. And so, the question we must ask is not what if things had been different, but what can I do differently now? In the end, when a woman sees you've moved on, what often arises is not just jealousy, not just comparison, but a moment of self-reflection. It becomes less about you and more about her. Your growth, your ability to rebuild, forces her to look inward and ask where she stands in her own journey. Has she truly grown since the breakup? Has she confronted the patterns that once sabotaged the relationship? Or has she remained in the same cycle of thought and behavior? This awakening is uncomfortable because it strips away distractions and confronts her with herself. Human beings often use relationships as mirrors. We measure our value, our maturity, our emotional stability against how others respond to us. But when she sees you thriving without her, the mirror flips. She must face her own progress, or lack of it, without the comfort of being central to your story. This is why moving on stings so deeply. It is not just about losing someone, but about losing the illusion that time has stood still for both people. Psychologically, this moment can trigger defensiveness, denial, or even anger. It's easier to criticize you, to belittle your new relationship, than to admit the more difficult truth. Perhaps she has not done the same inner work you have. But beneath those defenses lies an opportunity. Pain has a way of cracking open the surface and forcing reflection. If she allows it, she can begin to ask, what do I truly want from love? What kind of partner am I becoming? What wounds am I still carrying that prevent me from moving forward? And that is the deeper meaning of your moving on. It is not just an ending, it is a mirror. It can either be a mirror of bitterness, reflecting all the ways she feels left behind, or it can be a mirror of awakening, showing her what must change within herself. For all of us, the lesson is clear. Another person's growth is not a threat, but an invitation. It challenges us to rise, to shed the illusions that keep us stagnant, and to step into our own evolution. The real question is not how she feels when you've moved on. It is how she chooses to grow when faced with that truth.